He sold shoes from the trunk of his car, at track meets, at parking lots, anywhere someone would listen. Every major shoe company in America said no to him. Every investor said no. He was 30 years old with nothing but an obsession and a station wagon full of shoes nobody wanted. And then, he built the most iconic sports brand on earth. This is the story of Nike. February 24, 1938. Portland, Oregon. Philip Hampson Knight was born to a newspaper publisher and a homemaker. From childhood, Phil Knight runs, not casually, obsessively. He joined the track team at the University of Oregon under the legendary coach Bill Bowerman. Bowerman is not just a coach, he is an obsessive innovator who tears apart running shoes to understand why they fail. He hands them back to his athletes redesigned and rebuilt, faster, lighter, better. Phil Knight watches his coach tear apart shoes and rebuild them, and an idea begins forming that will not let him go. 1957. Phil Knight is 19 years old studying at the University of Oregon. Then Stanford. A professor assigns a simple exercise: write a business plan for a small company you could actually start. Phil Knight does not have to think for long. He writes about Japanese running shoes. At the time, German brands like Adidas dominate the American market. Phil Knight believes Japanese manufacturers can make better shoes for less money, and he believes American runners will buy them. His professor gives him an A. Phil Knight decides to actually do it. 1962. Phil Knight flies to Japan alone. 3 years after graduation, the business plan from Stanford still burning in his mind. No contacts, no connections, no plan beyond showing up. He walks into the offices of a Japanese shoe company called Onitsuka Tiger, tells them he represents a major American distributor. There is no distributor, there is only Phil Knight, 24 years old, standing in a Japanese boardroom, making up a company name on the spot. Blue Ribbon Sports. Onitsuka Tiger shakes his hand and gives him the distribution rights for America. Phil Knight flies home with 12 pairs of sample shoes. Back in America, Phil Knight puts the shoes in his car, drives to track meets across the Pacific Northwest, opens the trunk, sells shoes directly to runners out of the back of his car. First-year sales: $8,000. He is working as an accountant during the day to pay his rent, selling shoes on weekends to chase his dream. His father thinks it is embarrassing. His friends think it is a hobby. Phil Knight thinks it is everything. His old college coach Bill Bowerman becomes his partner. Together they tear apart every running shoe on the market. Then one morning in 1971, Bowerman stares at his wife's waffle iron at the breakfast table. What if the sole of a running shoe had that pattern? He pours rubber directly into the waffle iron, destroys the waffle iron completely, but creates the waffle sole. The most revolutionary running shoe innovation in history, born at a breakfast table. 1971. Phil Knight needs a name and a logo for his new shoe. He hires a graphic design student named Carolyn Davidson. She designs the Swoosh in 17.5 hours. Phil Knight pays her $35. The most valuable logo in sports history. $35. For the name he chooses Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. Simple, powerful, permanent. Today Nike generates over $50 billion in annual revenue. Over 40,000 employees worldwide, the most recognized sports brand on earth. The Swoosh is more recognizable than any flag of any nation, all starting from a man selling shoes from the trunk of his car. At track meets nobody cared about, with a belief nobody shared. Phil Knight had one thing every investor and every bank and every colleague failed to see. He was not selling shoes. He was selling the belief that every human being who ever laced up a pair and stepped onto a track or a road or a court was an athlete. Just do it. 3 words, the most powerful advertising line in history and the truest summary of everything Phil Knight did from the moment he opened that car trunk and believed. If this story moved you, hit subscribe. There are plenty more where this came from.